Hey everybody, welcome back to World History. So we're doing section 4 today. So we're continuing our conversation about the Reformation and just looking at kind of like, well, how did it affect everything else in Europe? So get your notes out. Let's get started. So some reintroductions. Protestant sects start to develop across Europe. These are religious groups that have broken away from an established church. This includes the Lutherans and the Calvinists, who we talked about last time. We also have the Anabaptists, or if you prefer their modern name, the Baptist Church. They reject infant baptism. They abolish private property, and they want religious toleration and separation of church and state. Some really big things for the time. So let's look at England and good old Henry VIII. And for those of you that like musical theater, you can probably guess where I'm going. So he claimed he was the defender of the faith against Protestant revolt. He was a very devout Catholic until there was a need for a male heir. His wife, Catherine of Aragon of Spain, who had originally been married to his brother, but married Henry after the brother died, was unable to provide a male. They did have a daughter, Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary. And so Henry wants to get an annulment, basically cancel the marriage from the Pope. Well, at this point, they'd been married for 24 years, and request was denied, and Catherine was like, no, 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 no way, mainly because there was a fear of offending the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Remember we talked about him last time, who was Catherine's nephew? Because, royalty, they're all related. Lol. So, he takes control of the church and establishes the Church of England, the Anglican Church, and appoints this gentleman, Thomas Cranmer, as Archbishop. And Cranmer's like, oh, sure, you can have a divorce. Sure, go right ahead. You want to cancel the marriage, go for it. To be fair, he'd already started sleeping with wife number 2. And in 1534, the Act of Supremacy is going to be passed by Parliament, declaring him the only supreme head on earth of the Church of England. Now, the Catholics did not accept this, and those that did not accept it were executed. This included Thomas More, who refused to accept this. He was later canonized or recognized as a saint by the Catholic Church, but yeah, he still died. So, that was in 1534. 1533, Henry marries Anne Boleyn, wife number 2, aka his mistress, who also doesn't have a son. They have a daughter, Elizabeth, as in Queen Elizabeth I. Anne's unable to provide a son. Henry wants another divorce, but Cranmer's like, no, that was a one-time thing. So he accuses Anne of being a witch and chops her head off. He's actually going to marry 4 more times. He actually got married to Jane Seymour, wife number 3, literally not even 10 days after Anne Boleyn lost her head. Now, they do have a son, Edward VI. Jane Seymour tragically does die while giving birth to Edward. He takes the throne at the age of 9 and tries to make England a Protestant country, but does die in his early teens, so he's not on the throne for very long. With that, there were no other male heirs to carry out Henry's desire for a stable monarchy, so the throne then passes to his daughters. Now, before I get into this, I do want to talk about the other wives, because we talk about the first 3. We need to talk about the other 3. Next, you have Anne of Cleves from Prussia, who Henry accused of catfishing him, and sent her to live in a castle, and she was really got the best deal out of it. She got left alone. Catherine Howard, who was cousin to Anne Boleyn, ironically also gets her head cut off after allegedly having an affair with her brother. It's a whole thing. And then Catherine Parr, the final wife, who survives him. But once Edward died, Mary Tudor takes power. This is Edward's half-sister, daughter of Henry and Catherine of Aragon. She's a devout Catholic and makes efforts to return England to the Catholic faith. Executes Protestants. She's known as Bloody Mary, and she dies in 1558. Once she passes, Elizabeth I takes over, and she'll rule for the next 25 years, daughter of Henry and Anne Boleyn. Now, she makes some compromises, an acceptable middle ground between the Protestants and Catholic practices, basically reunifying England. And England becomes a tolerant Protestant nation where both religions are accepted and equally practiced. So, jumping back to the Catholic Church, they're going to initiate their own reformation known as the Counter Revolution or the Counter Reformation. Basically, it's their way of being like, oh, we came up with this idea first. Luther didn't. We were already doing this. It was the idea to revive moral authority and end corruption, increase support for the church, and they'll meet in 1545 in the Council of Trent to determine the directions of these reforms. They're going to meet on and off for the next 20 years, so from 1545 to 1565. They're going to reaffirm traditional Catholic values and views, basically that salvation comes through faith and good works, that the Bible is not the only source of faith. They'll establish schools and put into place penalties for corruption among the clergy. So that's pretty good. And within this, we have other groups that are being founded, like Ignatius Loyola, or a soldier of God, founds the Jesuits, or the Society of Jesus. This is a new religious order that defended and spread the Catholic faith. They had strong spiritual and moral discipline and rigorous religious training. Like, they were like super into religion. Then you have Teresa of Avila, who was also a symbol of renowned intense faith herself, forming an order of nuns and reformed the Spanish convents. She also wrote a lot of information and a lot of books, including The Way of Perfection, basically like how to perfect your love and like practicing of your faith. Now, the legacy of the Reformation, majority of Europe remained Catholic, charity was increased, and church abuses were reduced. I'm not going to say they got rid of them. They were reduced, though. But it does lead to widespread persecution. This heightened religious passion meant that anybody that was considered different was targeted. The Anabaptists, the people that were Jewish, witches. This is very much the era of witch hunts. This is the center of religious conflict. These women were considered to be agents of the devil, and these were believers of Christianity and magic, typically social outcasts, midwives, herbalists. Anybody that didn't fit the societal norm that was expected was targeted. Now, in terms of the Jewish populations, they faced a lot of pressure to convert. They were forced into ghettos or separate quarters of the city, and a lot of times they faced expulsion or being completely kicked out of cities or countries. Very similar to what Spain did to the Muslim population when King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella took the throne, which we'll talk more about next chapter, I believe. All right, that is it for notes for today. There's an extra credit activity you guys are going to do that I'll probably talk more about in person. And
Kim Arnold, if you're present, please stop by the high school office. Kim Arnold, if you're present, please stop by the high school office.
Sorry about that. And for the honors kids, your Renaissance art project is due next class. Please make sure you get that done. See y'all next time. Bye, everybody.